crypto is already sort of like an established concept.
When Nasdaq grows, Bitcoin grows.
Yes, we are growing the pie.
Yeah.
We are not like dividing it in a different way. Stuff like Bitcoin is beautiful when it's not regulated.
So you are a crypto anarchist.
And here crypto is cool.
Hi, I'm Greg Mazdrid, and this is my podcast on the future of humanity and trends of development in our society. Today, here with me is Alex Makogon, founder and CEO of Collabs, a crypto investment fund. Alex has vast experience in management consulting. He has worked for Boston Consulting Group, McKinsey and Company, and now he's in crypto, like many of us, which is an interesting topic that we will discuss. We will discuss the future of Web3, arguments for and against it, and many other topics. Hi, Alex.
Hey, man.
First of all, I think the question that is bothering many of my audience is what's coming next for Web3 and crypto? Is it the end of the good times for the sector, or are you optimistic? Are you bullish on crypto and Web3? What's your take?
It's a good question. Thank you. And in general, I think I'm bullish. However, as usual, when you are bullish, it does not mean that next month it will be everything will be good. So it's in general, I think trends are very promising. But there are a lot of crypto is still why crypto is already sort of like an established concept. I think industry is still developing, and those there are a lot of unanswered questions which when they get answered, there's usually something either it's usually perceived like either very positive or very negative news and sentiment. Hence, with all this different, regulation news, for example, in states where, SEC starts some discussion and Bitcoin plummets and, all crypto plummets with Bitcoin or it grows. It doesn't matter, but it's still very, very volatile because people still have not fundamentally answered this question. Like, is it here for real? Mm-hmm. Or will it go? And hence, there is a lot of doubt in people, and that's why it's very, very volatile and prone to huge, huge either gains or losses. And even the correlation with Nasdaq shows that many people still perceive this as one of the tech industry, so a part of the tech industry. Because when this correlation, I think recently it was broken a little bit, sort of, but still before that it was very, very correlated.
When Nasdaq grows, Bitcoin grows.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And vice versa.
Yes. And also there is, an interesting, interesting thing in crypto, inside crypto, because once some positive news are released, for example, for Ethereum, other layer, not just Ethereum tends to grow, other layer ones also can grow, which, if you think about it, it's quite strange because in modern world, in traditional businesses, if something very good happens for, say, Tesla, obviously it means that it's not very good for Ford, for example, mm-hmm. Or General Motors. But and why? Maybe because because people think of this sector, which is in the case of this example, is the automotive. People think in terms of specific companies, and when they think crypto, they are still in this proof of concept stage. So mm-hmm. when something good happens for Ethereum, this sort of proves some concept that this can work. And those, other layer ones grow as well, which would not be the case in established industry because there is not so much proof of concept in established industries. Like it can be, in very specific applications like electromotive stuff and some new type of batteries, but it's still quite different for this industry.
And that's one of the reasons that I like crypto and Web3, because there is no such fierce competition as in more traditional industries. People respect and like each other often when they work for competing projects, because when one of them grows, it boosts crypto adoption and more people come to competitors as well.
Yeah, it's very cool because still, it's still people perceive it as it's we are growing the pie.
Yeah.
We are not dividing it in a different way. And this, usually people tend to be very, very friendly because they understand that, again, most of the potential ahead is not about, me taking extra 2% market share from you, like in telecom or banking. It's about growing the pie.
What would you say about the future size of this pie? So currently, crypto is around like $1 trillion, I think, valuation.
Some more or less. So I think it's very hard to answer this question in precise number, because the way I would think about and the way I would answer this question is I would probably rather than mentioning stating some random number like 10 trillion or like 1 billion or something. I think it's more important to understand which factors drive this number. Like what needs to happen for it to be 10 trillion, or what can drive it to 1 billion or 1 million, or to zero. And in this sense, crypto is almost becoming a little bit, I would say, political to me, just because it's with all the trends of deglobalization and different countries sort of like stopping being friends with each other, and trying to compete with each other, and trying to build competitive business or country economic models. With all the stuff happening, I think developing crypto and supporting the development of crypto as a government or banning it is almost becoming a political question. Even, I think, in many countries, people who are like pro-crypto or against crypto, they are also sort of like divided by political parties and their views, which is, very strange, because if you have certain stance on, human rights or whichever, any other question which parties usually argue with each other with, it kind of should not influence your stance on crypto, but now it does. So it's becoming almost like political thing. And in this sense, I'm very bullish for crypto because I think crypto has some very interesting use cases. However, I also understand that if a certain number of governments combine their effort and try to ban it, or like quasi-ban where you don't ban it but you regulate it the way it's non-existent, then it can go to zero. Otherwise, I think it's here to stay. In some use cases, it's here to stay.
And what's the maximum threshold it could reach, the market valuation?
Yeah, it's very hard to forecast. Technically, you can say that, the way you can approach this question is you can take the size of, global, not economy, but maybe, payment cases, other industries, and add some, arbitrary number, like, for example, Bitcoin will take, 20% of store of wealth, and some other crypto will take 20% of payment market, and so on and so forth. But I don't know. Maybe someone can do this exercise for me. I was never interested in getting to this some number specific. I think understanding trends and understanding factors which lead either to growth or to the opposite process is more important than doing some prediction, specific prediction. Especially in industries where, the more, Gary Gensler comes and says something and Bitcoin goes down like 20% or goes up 20%. It's very hard to predict specific numbers.
Do you believe that governments should regulate crypto more? Because obviously it has its regulation has its downsides, and if it's too strenuous, it can lead to Bitcoin plummeting and other cryptocurrencies losing their value. But on the other hand, there are many cases of projects that scam their users, and some of these issues could be resolved by introducing some regulation as to financial transparency, etc., something that already has existed in more traditional industries for quite a long time.
I'm more prone to having less regulation than more regulation, just because we already have a lot of different things in our life which are very much regulated.
Mm-hmm.
Regulated too much, I should say. And thus, having this original, OG crypto idea that, having something that's not touched by government or by people in power is kind of cool. I think stuff like Bitcoin is beautiful when it's not regulated. I think stuff like DeFi, it might even benefit from some regulation. The problem is it's very hard to do deregulation. And it's also, if you're a government, it's sometimes very hard to stop once you start regulating something, because you usually try to, because, the way I think about it is, when you're a government, what's your KPI? Why you're regulating something? And here, even if you're a good government, your KPI would probably be because then once you understand what you optimize for, you can understand you can answer the question.
Well-being of your people, ideally.
Yeah. And so ideally it's well-being of your people. But then, you also ask yourself a question like well-being of which categories of people exactly? Because again, it can be, you can answer to this question very differently. Yeah. And, in democracy, it's usually, well-being of most people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like well-being most people, because you want to win next election, and you will win if most people are happy with you, because one vote equals one person equals one vote. So in this sense, you probably I'm not sure that this system of incentivization will lead you to proper regulation. I think in most cases you will tend to be over-regulated rather than under-regulated.
So you are a crypto anarchist.
In some sense, yes. Again, just because, it's very tempting for a government to over-regulate something, just to be a little bit on the safer side.
Mm-hmm. Is Dubai a good example? By the way, I know that your fund is based in Dubai, or one of its headquarters is there.
Yeah.
So is it a good example? I've heard that they have quite progressive laws on Web3.
They have progressive, but they also change quite rapidly. Because, for example, this year there was some new regulations which did not exist before. I think Dubai is a decent example, but I also think they are trying it out and trying to understand, because as most of the countries if you look on world map, and for each country, for each sizable country, you map some type of regulation, whereas it's banning crypto, allowing everything. It's very hard to give these polar extremes. In most cases, it's like something in between, which is probably a good thing. Mm-hmm. Because again, the beneficial, the best regulation is always something. In most cases, it's something in between. But in this case, I think it's something in between, not because they figure it out, but because they are not sure. Because they are thinking, well, maybe it should be this way, and maybe it should that way. But when you, for example, if you take US, for example, which is probably still the most important country to look at from this perspective, because many countries follow like what US does. When you listen to this, different Congress hearings, and when you watch what questions people are asking and what answers they get, you pretty much understand that they don't know much about this. There was a famous, which is a different example, but there was a famous audition or hearing for Mark Zuckerberg, which many people laughed at, because there was so many stupid questions. Yeah, which shows that people who are trying to regulate and trying to ask Mark some questions, they don't even understand how internet works. So they're very,
boomers.
Yeah, they're very obsolete in their understanding, and which is a bad thing. And same with crypto, because crypto, let's be honest, for average person, crypto is even harder to understand than internet.
Of course.
Not because it's more complex or something, although probably it is, but because you use it less, and it's less with us. Yeah, it's not like for 20 for 30 years. It's maybe for like 5 years of widespread adoption. You can if you even can call it widespread. So and hence I think most of the countries are trying to find this the sweet spot of regulation, but still I don't think they figured it out.
Let's fantasize a little bit. I know that you are a man of economics, finance, mostly. You like many use cases of crypto that enable cross-border transactions, maximizing profits, using arbitrage in different scenarios, etc., etc. But since you are also a crypto bro, you and the crypto anarchist, as we learned, you probably also have something to say about some more futuristic use cases of crypto, such as Vitalik Buterin's concept of soulbound tokens. Maybe, are you optimistic about such scenarios where crypto and Web3 in general can be used?
Well, first of all, it's hard to not believe to like almost anything that Vitalik says. I've yet to find some stupid article which Vitalik wrote. So he has a proven track record of imagining things into reality. Like he writes some article and someone builds a business around this. So I believe in the concept of soulbound tokens, and it's not something it's not something that will change the world forever. It's just one of the maybe one of the 100 concepts which he has. It's a nice concept. In general, no. When answering questions, which crypto use cases I believe in, or which crypto use cases I don't believe in, I think we have to, before answering this question, we have to understand what crypto does best and what it doesn't, and what it does not in a very good way. Because the original idea for crypto was building, these decentralized systems, which have something that's called Byzantine fault tolerance, or basically it's something that works without centralized authority in a proper way. Let's put it simple. And building something that works without a decentralized authority is nice in cases when it's good for you and beneficial for you to not trust some single centralized authority. Yeah? And trust in centralized authorities is a fine thing. Sometimes it's very good. When it's good when you have an industry or a sector of economics, for example, you call it whatever, where it's easy to enter this market. Because in this case, if there is a centralized authority which behaves in a way that you don't like, it's very easy to someone to enter this market and build another centralized authority, be it business, for example. For example, if you trust Amazon, until Amazon is good, you trust Amazon. When Amazon starts to scam people, someone builds another e-commerce, which does not scam people, and people go from Amazon to this e-commerce. Because barriers, don't take me wrong. There are a lot of barriers in building your own Amazon, especially when Amazon is still in existence. But it's possible, right? It's possible to be a competitor for Amazon. Now, it's very hard to be a competitor for government. Yeah? And most of the cases where crypto was really, really cool is use cases which are somewhat connected to something that government does. In original cases, printing money. Because if I don't like monetary policy of my central bank, I cannot go and found my own central bank, which will operate in the same country. I cannot do an alternative dollar, alternative, in any other country. See? And I can buy currencies of other countries, but what if I don't want to hold currencies of other countries? So and here crypto is cool, just because you build a system which you don't need to trust and it works. It's cool. So originally, no, that's why I mostly believe in cases where but all this also comes at a cost, because obviously building a decentralized system which does something is much more complex, and it will be more expensive than building a centralized system which does exactly the same thing. Yeah? So it comes at a cost. And essentially, if you use a decentralized system, you pay more, just because it's harder for it to operate in most cases. So this comes at a cost. And those, I don't believe in many crypto use cases which are connected to something that can be easily done without crypto, just by doing stuff in a centralized way. Because again, I don't want to solve a problem with. Trusting an authority is not very much. It's not a huge problem when anyone can become this authority. So when there are multiple authorities, it's fine. Maybe you trust Amazon and I trust eBay. It's fine.
Well, the problem I have with people who look at crypto mostly from the financial standpoint is that that's not completely in line, in my opinion, with the original idea behind it, to oppose centralized systems, to be independent from banks and banking system, to be not be controlled by any government and any authority. Doesn't matter if you trust it or not. It can change. The policy may change, and it's a good thing to be independent, to be on your own, self-sufficient. All this Burning Man type ideology that I adhere to as well. And mostly nowadays, crypto is talked about in the context of it being a convenient means of payment or convenient means of crowdfunding, crowd investing, making money, but not in the crypto is not mostly talked about in terms of it changing the world for a better place politically. Do you often think about this?
Well, yes and no. I think, I partially agree and partially disagree. Also, I definitely like the whole concept, the way you look at it. I think most of the cases which are popular with crypto now, such as payments and stuff like this, are very cool. Exactly because they what they help you with is you become sort of like, you don't need to trust banks. You can just hold currency in your wallet. And it's cool that this wallet can be digital, because you can also hold cash. But cash is not very convenient. In this sense, crypto is more like cash than electronic currency. But anyway, I think all these cases are quite cool because they actually achieve this, original crypto goal of being independent of some centralized authorities, which you cannot avoid in your usual life. In this sense, there is probably a not financial use case, which I believe in, which is something that WorldCoin tries to achieve, which is a proof of personhood. I don't know, whether WorldCoin will be successful with this project. So I don't have anything, very positive or very negative to say about WorldCoin as a project. But I really believe that this problem is a very interesting one, because if I go back, do a step back, essentially what they're trying to do is, again, and this is idea of I don't know if Vitalik is someone who invented it, probably not in this case, but I think first I read it on Vitalik's blog, and this idea is basically of this problem is a very interesting one. Like, how do you prove that someone on the network is a real human? And how you identify this real human with a single ID. Because normally, obviously, in internet, this was not, which is the case in real life. Yeah, you can identify me by how I look and my government issued ID and so on and so forth. But it's not the case in the internet, where on the same forum I can have 10 different accounts. Yeah? And again, you can try to identify me with my IP, but I can easily change it. Or use VPN. So and it's a very interesting problem to tackle, because once you solve it, it's also becoming very interesting. You can build other use cases based on this. You can build universal income systems based on this, where because now you cannot do it, because if you distribute, if you want to do a universal income experiment, then it's very hard to really, and you want to do it online. Yeah? It's very hard to do, because anyone can, register 1,000 Ethereum wallets and get, 1,000x of what they were supposed to get. So here it solves this problem completely. And it's very interesting. It also solves other problems, because, for example, also the reason why proof of work was invented originally, and it wasn't invented originally not for Bitcoin, but there is also a story where proof of work used as an anti-spam mechanism, because the logic was very simple. When spam became a problem, and I mean email obviously, and when spam became a problem, but the anti-spam filters were not that good, or maybe were non-existent, there was this idea that if you make sending email cost something, it might solve the problem of spam. But if you make it cost some money, it's becoming sort of like clumsy, because even if it's a small amount of money, like 1 cent, first of all, like, I don't want to pay when I send the email. Even 1 cent, it's kind of, this stupid thing that you, like, it's not free. But also, you have to have some payment system for me to pay you this 1 cent. So I have to tell you my credit card for you to charge me, which is, again, a little bit clumsy. So the logic was, well, let's do the following. Let's make, when you send email, let's make your computer solve some mathematical task. And if you send in 1 email, it's fine. It will solve it. If you send in 10 emails, it's also fine. It will solve it. But if you send in 100,000 emails, it won't solve it. And you won't be able to send so many emails from different, even if you register many emails, many email accounts, you still won't be, because you still have this limited processing power, which, and this idea immigrated to Bitcoin. And the idea was, well, let's have this limitation of processing power for people to submit blocks, because in this way you will not be able to spam the system with blocks that are not correct, which is a cooler concept. So and with going back to what we were discussing with this system of proof of personhood, you can even build a system where it's not proof of work or proof of stake, but it's sort of like proof of being a real person, so that 1 person can submit only 1 block per day, for example. And then it solves the spam. And then if you submit a bad block, or you're trying to fraud the system in some way, then you, for example, you can get banned from the system, and it's becoming very cool network concept. So there are some very interesting use cases which are not purely financial, which I believe in. But
if we continue thinking about the future in more broad terms and strokes, what do you think awaits us in terms of are we going to live in some society that's closer to a utopian or dystopian one? Are you optimistic about the future, about what lies next for humanity?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm definitely optimistic, just because it's hard to be pessimistic on what awaits you. If if you do, you in general you risk to. I think you risk to not have a very good life. Just because you will be worrying too much. But I think average human, and I definitely think of myself as an average human, is very bad at predicting future. Just because if you look at history predictions, the way usual human predicts future is. You take 2 points in history and you extrapolate them. So, for example, someone in 1950s will say that there was a car which was driving 10 miles per hour, and now they are driving like 100 miles per hour. So next 50 years we will drive 200 miles per hour.
But we will still be unhappy.
Maybe. But we'll be a little bit happier, when you're driving this car. But in general, we try to extrapolate. What comes really is. It's almost like this black swan event of which Nassim Taleb wrote a book, but something disrupts it completely, and it disrupts in a way that any extrapolation made before it does not make any sense. Like, I don't know, for example, computer. Before computer arrived, it was very, very hard for average person to imagine something like this. You have some attempts,
sci-fi.
If you look at sci-fi, there are some concepts which are very similar, but still, the way they imagined it is far less, I think, ambitious comparing to how it really works now. And then there is a different trend. The more you live, the faster everything happens, just because there are more people, and trends are global. So previously there were like 5 billion people doing something. Now it's like 8 billion people doing something. Then there will be 10 billion people doing something, and then someday it will be 20 billion people also doing something.
And also AIs.
And also AIs, which will be most likely it will be exponential. And this you can very easily come to this concept of technological singularity, which you're probably familiar with. Is basically, and in some sense, it almost feels like very, very close to it, just because there is a block which I really like called Wait But Why. And and the guy had Tim Urban. The guy had an article about AI, and what really shocked me, and it was back then, like maybe, I don't know, 6 years ago when AI was not that popular. What really shocked me is the way he thought about it, which again became very logical now, but then it was not that obvious, is that most people, when they think of AI, they're not very afraid of AI, just because it's 3 years ago it was equivalent to a brain of, I don't know, mosquito. And then, now it's equivalent to a brain of, I don't know, a rat, something, a mouse. And then probably, in 100 years, it will be equivalent to a brain of, I don't know, a bear or a cat or whatever, or a dolphin, yeah? But obviously, it's not the case it works, yeah? Once it's, and then he has this metaphor of you standing on a train platform and train approaching you. And when you look at train is far away, far away, far away, far away. And then, just 1 second, and this high-speed train, it goes, through the station and goes somewhere very far, and this is how he imagined the revolution of AI. That there will be some moment where this train, like yesterday, it was more stupid than a single human, and tomorrow it's more, it's better than all humans combined.
Yeah.
And I think this is probably what will happen, and in the sense, it's partially happening now. And I also, as many people, some people probably become to feel the way I become, the way I'm feeling right now, is when I look to new ways how it's working, yeah. And I think, I mean all these layers on ChatGPT, AutoGPT thing, stuff like this. The way I feel is it's very hard for me to understand what do I have to do now, what will be in demand in 5 years.
Yeah.
Because almost anything which I can imagine, which I can do, this thing, it's almost doing it better right now. It's probably not.
Yeah.
Because again, 10 years ago, when I was not a kid, but when I'm
college student.
Yeah, college student. I was thinking like, well, what should I do? Maybe I should try myself as a writer, and I wrote something. Yeah, maybe I should try myself as a musician, and I played some music. And now all of these things becoming generative. And generative writing, and then now you have generative writing, which is all very good. Yeah. Well, some people will argue that it's not good, but yeah.
But it's quite good. At least.
It's quite good,
yeah.
And
good enough for many cases.
I mean, it's quite good, and it's every day it's becoming better and better. Yeah. And people who tell that it's shit, well, it's maybe they think it's shit today, but in 1 year they won't think so. And then you have generative speech, yeah, and then you have generative video. And then you'll probably have some sort of generative computer games. And then, this will converge into some generated experience. Yeah, like AI is, you have, I don't know, VR set, and AI is, you want to live some experience of, being as someone in some setting, and you just set who you are in which setting, and what type of game you want to play, or even what type of life you want to live in this VR. It happens, and it generates for you, a custom experience. And in this sense, it's a little bit frightening, to be honest.
Yeah.
I was
creepy.
Yeah, it's creepy. It's creepy. I played Magic the Gathering with AI, with ChatGPT.
Yeah, interesting.
And it was very interesting because I've seen a lot of YouTube videos on people playing chess with ChatGPT.
Yeah.
And ChatGPT played decent chess, not as not AlphaGo.
I crashed it.
yeah, it's not
I crashed it.
It's not AlphaGo by any means, but it played decent chess. But I was not surprised by its ability to play chess. Why? Because chess is a game, albeit it's very complex. It has, first of all, it has very easy notation. Like you can code the chess game in maybe
in binary code.
Yeah, in binary code. And then chess is also a game which has a very good database of recorded games. So it's very easy for ChatGPT to have some part of recorded games in its memory. Mm-hmm. And then when I play, when I play with ChatGPT, I also use very standard opening. So chances are it already has all, like a million similar games to what I'm trying to play, and it will probably crush me unless, it will collapse because it
makes illegal moves at some point.
Yeah, stuff like this. But when I played Magic the Gathering, now it was creepier. Yeah? Why? Because Magic is a game which has a very, very high variation because you can have different decks with cards which you play. It's also a game which has much less recorded games, and most of them are in video form, like two players playing each other. Yeah, it's very hard to synthesize because people not only have different decks of cards, but they also have different opening hands. So each game you play is somewhat different from the game you played before. The whole game relies not just on your ability to memorize some openings, but on your ability to conceptualize and understand sort of the way it works, but you won't be able to memorize because you won't get the same hand of cards twice, yet alone with against the same opponent. Yeah. So each game is completely different. So for you to play it, you have to play some games, understand basic rules, and it also has very complex rules. Rules of chess is very, it can be written on one piece of paper.
Yeah.
Rules of Magic the Gathering is, I think, 400 something pages.
Wow.
So there are a lot of rules just because there are a lot of cards and a lot of ways for them to interact. So when I played with ChatGPT, I was really surprised because it was just, it was able to memorize what's happening on the board. It was able to memorize which cards he has in his imaginative hand. It was able to make some very interesting plays. And then two things, two things that really shocked me. I asked it whether I'm winning or losing, and it replied correctly, which is also a very hard thing because as in chess, for you to understand if you are winning or lose,
you have to have understanding.
You have to have a very good understanding of a game, yeah. And well, maybe if you chess advantage is +8 or something, even a newbie can understand that why it is winning, yeah. But then if it's +0.3, yeah, you need to be like Magnus Carlsen to understand that it's +0.3 and not -0.1. So it's kind of hard. So it replied correctly about the state of the game, which was very surprising to me. But then also I made a move where I played a card which is not usually played in a deck which I previously announced ChatGPT I was playing with. And it said like, well, why are you playing this card? It seems weird. People who play this type of deck, they don't usually play this card. There must be some deck building error, which was very almost this awareness moment, which was creepy. Also very intriguing, but creepy.
Who won?
We didn't play the whole game. It was more like an experiment because obviously when you play, you can you imagine the game, so you imagine the card you draw. So it's not cards, it's not random cards. So you can imagine you drew the best card and the opponent drew the worst card, so you easily win.
It's a great experiment. I really like it. Yeah. Well, I should think about more creative ways to test the abilities of ChatGPT. I really like communicating with it. Thank you for your insights. I'd like to ask our subscribers to write down in the comments what they have used neural networks for, some creative use cases, or maybe not so creative, but still useful ones, because we're all learning. I'm constantly learning, and I don't know how to adapt to this new reality either. Nobody does. I think we should all be open-minded and await the best and the worst at the same time. This has been Greg Mazdrid's podcast. Alex Makogon. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, man.
See you guys.